Hello, everybody. Welcome. Okay. And Dusty, you can go to the second page, second slide. We're going to go ahead and get started. I know that folks will be filtering in. This is just a reminder that, if you need any additional assistance in following along, there's closed captions that you can select at the bottom of your computer screen. And on mobile, if you don't see a closed captioning button, you'll need to select the back arrow in the top left of your screen, then the settings cog, and then meetings, then enable the show closed captioning. If you're having any difficulty doing so, please message us in the chat and we'll try our best to help. Let's go to next slide. Hey, great. So many of you our names are familiar to me, but in case you don't know, my name is Mustafa. I use he, him pronouns, and I am the Director of Campaigns and Strategy at CCAN, and I live in DC. And so, as our speakers speak, I'm going to invite them to introduce themselves as when they talk in their sections. But tonight, we're going to do a handful of things. We're going to provide a legislative update, and then do a report out on the first day of session action. We're going to do a report out on the lobby captain training. And then we're going to talk about our upcoming lobby trainings and advocacy events. We've made a few changes in the last few days to the schedule. And then we'll talk about our exciting distributed organizing program, Climate Champs. And then we will get into a testimony writing training. And we're going to spend the last 20 minutes breaking out into groups to write up testimony. And then at the end, we'll have a few minutes for questions. So what I encourage folks to do to enable participation and keeping the agenda moving, put your questions into the chat, and our folks who are not speaking will do their best to respond to questions in the chat. And then otherwise, please do stick around to the end, and we'd be happy to answer any outstanding questions, even if it means for us staying on a few minutes extra. So we'll go to the next slide. Um, oh, let's do the next slide. There must be a mistake. My bad. Go to the next slide. Great. Thank you so much. So we want to provide legislative updates. So I first wanted to start off with the Renew Act. So this is House Bills 128 and House Bill 128 and Senate Bill 149. Because of y'all's steadfast advocacy since last session, and by virtue of pre-filing the Renew Act this year, we are seeing a lot of progress actually with the legislation. So it actually is scheduled already for a hearing this week. It's in House Economic Matters, and it's scheduled for this Thursday at 1 p.m. in the House Office Building, room number 230. So if you're interested in going up there to testify or to just show support, that is a great that would be amazing. And also, you can go to the House Economic Matters Committee website, and you can also watch the live stream from there if you're curious to see how that goes. And so we're excited about having the hearing and this having it particularly early this session. However, we're also preparing to do some additional advocacy that's going to happen after the hearing to keep this legislation just top of mind for legislators until they actually vote on the legislation and get it out of the committee. So this is just a committee hearing. There's no vote that's scheduled for it. And there's not a clear timeline on when they're going to be voting on this at all. So be on the lookout for rapid response that's going to be coming up in the next couple weeks to keep pushing this legislation forward. Next slide. So we also have the Affordable and the Abundant and Affordable Clean Energy Act. It's known as ACE. So the ACE bill numbers are House Bill 396 and Senate Bill 316. The coalition behind this bill is strong. It is made up of groups from various sectors. So it includes groups from labor, solar, environmental, and justice groups. The House hearing is actually going to be scheduled for this, I believe, in Economic Matters as well on February 6th. So that's going to be scheduled February 6th. And the big update on this bill, though, actually, is that the governor has introduced an energy bill as well, and it's called the Energize Act. The governor's bill is aligned with the Maryland Energy Administration's 100% Clean Energy Report, and it has the goal of getting Maryland closer to achieving 100% clean energy by 2035, which is good news. But we're still reading over the governor's bill. We have to go over with the fine-tooth comb as we normally would, because we want to determine which parts of it are compatible with ACE and which parts of it we agree with, which parts we still think need some improvement. And so, additionally, the governor's bill, what we do know, what we can see very clearly from the legislation thus far, is that it incentivizes new construction of nuclear energy in the state. And so, for those of you that may be that are would be concerned by that, you may want to let the governor know that you have that concern. Next legislation or next slide, please. So the Better Buildings Act. We're still waiting on the Better Buildings Act language. So the Legislative Services hasn't put it together yet. The positive side of that is that we plan to shop the bill around for co-sponsors. So once we get the bill language back, we should be, which actually I'm told should be sometime this week, we'll be moving forward. And so there will be a virtual event launch for this Better Buildings Act campaign at some point in the near future. We're scheduling that, so keep a lookout for that. It'll be a virtual rally, and when we have that, please we'll share it out, and please feel free to share that widely. Next slide. So the last thing I want to update you all on is no new gas. So we learned it was last week, right before our lobby captain training that we did in person in Annapolis, that that the Senate and House leadership is planning on proposing legislation this year that could really significantly compromise the progress we've made to address the climate crisis. It does so by actually incentivizing the construction of at least one uh, gas fuel power plant in Maryland. So this is terrible. Boo, 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 boo. Um, there's no bill language available on this, so we don't know exactly what it states. However, Senate President Ferguson and Senator Feldman, who's chair of the Senate Environment Committee, the Triple E Committee, have both explicitly expressed their support of new gas generation to the press recently and to the public. And so we are being proactive about our stance against gas. So what I invite you all to do is please feel free just to help us with this. We want to recruit as many organizations as possible to sign on to a letter in opposition to building new gas plants. So I'm going to ask for Zippy or for Dustin to share the link for that in the chat. So you all can share that petition far and wide. And don't worry, tomorrow you'll have in your inbox a follow-up email with all the contents from this meeting. Next slide, please. So I want to just share that given the significant opposition to climate legislation from leadership at this point and the fossil fuel industry, even through last year when we didn't get anything very significant done, we knew we were going to have to start off really strongly framing our issues. So we held a rally in Annapolis. You can see the picture there on the left of your screen. We had about 40 volunteers from across the state. Some of you that are on the call showed up to this. And for the first time, at least since I've been at CCAN and maybe in a very long time, CCAN has coupled the rally with actually doing lobby visits. So we had dozens, volunteers went to dozens of legislative offices, House and Senate side. Sometimes we spoke with the legislators themselves, and sometimes we just spoke with their staff to express our strong, strong support for the Renew Act. And so I wanted to just give a moment. I think, Dustin, do you have a volunteer on here that's, or yourself that wanted to share their experience?
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about it. So, for myself, and if we haven't met yet, how's it going, everyone? So my name is Dustin. I'm the Central Maryland Coordinator with CCAN and CCAN Action Fund. Most of my experience working here in Maryland has actually been on the other side of the desk. So working in the offices of Senator Mary Washington and Delegate Alice Kane in District 30A. And one of the biggest differences for this year than I myself have seen is just the sheer amount of grassroots activity on the very first day of session. I'm not used to it being this cold here in Maryland. I grew up down in Florida, so I gotta up my jacket game a little bit. But having so many people from all across Maryland coming together in the cold, in an extreme weather warning, to make their voices heard and demand that the polluters must pay, um, especially as we are in the first days of this new administration. Those are the sorts of things that people notice. And many of these legislators, they were going out to this reception, that reception. They're used to having all kinds of different groups coming to them and delivering their policy priorities. But even hearing directly from other legislators, they are not used to having not just grassroots volunteers, but their own constituents coming to their offices on the very first day to say, keep an eye out for the Renew Act. Please support it when it comes to your committee, in addition to these other bills like the Better Buildings Act and ACE. And that was hugely impactful for us.
Fantastic. Thanks, Dustin. Can we go to the next slide?
Yes.
So we also had lobby captain training last week. And again, also since the first time since I've been at CCAN, I think first time since the pandemic started, so probably since 5 or 6 years, we actually had a lobby captain training that was in person in Annapolis. So you can see the picture on the right is that is our conference room, CCAN's conference room in Annapolis. We had about 8 lobby captains join us. And then we had the opportunity. We had just scheduled the meeting. Literally, Dustin had scheduled the meeting the day beforehand to meet with Speaker Jones's legislative assistant. So you see the picture on the left to talk about our legislative priorities and to say no to any new gas to her. So I think we have Tippy. Do we have John on here?
I have not seen John, but I
Oh,
will shoot him a text and hopefully he
Hello?
can hop on before the end.
Hello?
oh, hey,
Oh, there's
John.
John.
Oh,
Oh,
it's Linda's on there. Okay,
Hi.
that's why we missed it. Okay.
Yeah, my wife must have been messing around with my Zoom, so but
Well, I want to introduce John. John is one of our lobby captains, and he's was at the lobby captain training. And John, would you like to just share what it was like for you?
I thought it was a very informative gathering. It was I think we got a lot done that day. We went through basic training in in role plays and things, and then we got to put them to use when we met with Jeannie Ferretti from Adrian Jones, Speaker Jones's office. And also, like you were saying, aside from the 3 bills, we each did a presentation on. We also talked about the gas plant, the proposed new gas plant. And so that was a very, from my standpoint anyway, this it sounded like it was a very good meeting, and she, I don't think she held us to the strict 15 minutes. We went a little over on that, and I think she was glad to accommodate us on that. Afterwards, we went back over to the office, and we worked on getting, well, one of the, working on getting a MGA account set up, and which is something actually I was able to use today to send a some written testimony for the Renew Act, but got that in just under the wire. But so it's so I was a very fruitful day in general.
Fantastic. Thanks, John. Um, I want to keep us moving, so we can do questions at the end, or if you have a question, you can type it in the chat, and our folks will be happy to respond. Um, so what I would like for it to do is, so we have folks like John. We have about, I think, how many, Dustin, how many lobby captains we have signed up across the state now? Is that 14, 15?
I'd say around there, probably a good bit more.
Yeah.
19 off the top of my
So
head.
I know that we have about another 40 districts, include all of our like priority committees that we're going to try to cover with lobby captains. So and that we need to have lobby teams for. So the first thing I want to just to put into the chat is our lobby night that's happening on February 24th. Would love for folks just to either post into the chat or to raise your hand if you're planning on coming to our lobby night on February 24th in Annapolis. Got John. Awesome. We got Joanna. It's from 5:30 to I think 8:30 in the evening in Annapolis. So Amy, awesome, fantastic. So please, if you haven't already and you want to come or you think that you might want to come, you should definitely go ahead and sign up. And again, all the links will be provided in the follow-up email. I also wanted to ask, we're looking for more lobby captains, and uh, some of the lobby captains will be able to represent their own districts, and some of them we need help, just volunteer leadership to represent the other districts. And I think, as John can attest to this, it's just about making sure that your team has an agenda, they know what they're talking about, and that they have roles for the meeting, and that they know where to be and when. So please, raise your hand if maybe you're interested in being a lobby captain, you would like to learn more. Connect with an organizer about it, or post in the chat. And I'm going to put the link to the lobby captain interest form for anybody who might be interested. Do not be shy about it. We are happy to prepare anybody for the role. Yes. Yeah, thanks, Zippy, for responding to the question. Yeah, so uh, it will, yeah, any pushback that you get is going to be on lobby night is going to depend on the legislator. And so we'll be sure, to make sure that you are prepared with any of the latest intel that we have going into lobby night. And we'll be definitely talking to both the House and Senate side. Great. Happy to address that question. And then let's move on to lobby training and events. Dustin.
Yes. So we have a series of trainings and events leading up to February 24th that are really going to help us be successful in hitting our goals. We have hit the ground running exceptionally well so far, but we need to build on our progress and keep up the pressure. So on January 30th, we are going to have a virtual lobby training. If you can take a screenshot, We're also going to send all the sign-up links for each of these events to you in a follow-up email as well. On February 13th, we're going to have a hybrid lobby captain training that's going to run in conjunction with our student lobby day. So we may have a wonderful group of young climate activists coming down from my favorite city here in Maryland, Baltimore City, to come join us in the Capitol. And that will kind of be a dry run for our lobby captains to go out to their legislative offices.
Dustin, if there's any way you can turn up your mic, we have a couple of comments in the chat asking you to turn up
hear me?
the volume.
Or I will talk louder instead of turning up my mic. Let me turn it up a little bit. Here we go. But I'll project a little bit more as well. So February 13th, Student Lobby Day. February 17th from 6 to 8 p.m., we're going to have a virtual lobby training. Then the next day from 3 to 4 p.m., we have virtual lobby office hours. So if you have any questions, you have a meeting coming up and you're not quite sure about this legislator or that one, please let us know and we'll be happy to assist you. Then later that evening, we are going to have our February Maryland membership call. And on February 24th, our big day, we are going to pack the House and the Senate on our annual lobby night in Annapolis from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. All right. So just like I was talking about keeping up the pressure and our momentum, we are building a distributed volunteer program called the Climate Champs. I wanted to call it the Climateers, but that was taken. But that's all right. We are Climate Champs, and we are going to be victorious on Sine Die, the end of this legislation. So we are calling into priority districts that are going to help us reach people who are not yet involved in our movement. We had a lot of new people that had never done lobbying before on the first day of session. We wanted to get even more folks out and talking to their legislators. So we're going to be making 5,000 phone calls to constituents in key targeted districts. And it's going to take at least 15, if not more, volunteers to do 50 hours of calling from between now to Sine Die, the last day of the legislative session in April. We want to get 150 people at the very least to take legislative action on climate issues. So all of our rapid response, all of the support that we need for these priority pieces of legislation, we need your help, and we are going to grow the movement to do it. So we are having phone banks through our auto dialing system on Mondays and Fridays from 4 to 7 p.m. Our next one is going to be this Friday at 6 p.m. If you sign up, you're going to get a Zoom link. I'm going to show you all how to use our system. I'll walk you through our script and answer any questions that you may have. And with this auto dialer, the more people that you get on it at the same time, the more phone calls it can make. So it goes so much faster, the more people that you have on. So if you can only contribute an hour or 2 hours, come on Friday at 6 p.m. I'll be happy to get you started. All right. And Zippy, I do want to give you the chance to drop the sign up link in the chat, please. And I do want to ask everyone, please raise your hand if you can join us for the next calling shift. Can you join us on Friday or next Monday? I'm sharing my screen so I can't see everyone. But give me a wave if you can. I've got a couple people. Excellent, excellent. All right, well, make sure you sign up and we will get you started. Thanks so much. Over to you, Zippy.
Thanks, Dustin. So I am really excited to offer you another chance to get involved. In particular, if you heard about all of those opportunities to come to Annapolis and make a bigger impact because you're there in person and you're like, I can't do that for whatever reason. Maybe I'm not available that night. Maybe I don't have transportation. Maybe it's just really far away, but I still want to make a difference and I want to make a larger impact. The next part of this webinar is for you, because we are talking about a way that you can make an outsized impact from home on a variety of issues, and that is by submitting written legislative testimony. So why do we submit legislative testimony? There are a couple of reasons. First of all, the more testimony, like any kind of communication that a legislator sees, they know that there's more support for it, and they have to consider that certain amounts of constituents that could vote them out eventually might support one thing or another. If legislators see that a lot of people from CCAN are submitting testimony, in particular, they might, think twice about ignoring a question that we might have about why they might want to build a new gas plant. And then if you write, very personal, high quality testimony, it can be impactful in very particular ways. Legislators might share it during committee meetings, but even more so, every piece of legislative testimony gets reviewed by the legislators while they're making decisions about the bill. So you can send an email, you can make a call, but your legislator might be off doing something else. And this is a guaranteed way to know that while they are thinking about this issue and can do something about this issue, you have a chance to tell them why they should support climate action. So what makes for effective testimony? And what does effective testimony look like? Any thoughts? I wanna ask the chat to contribute ideas on thoughts on effective testimony. I know we have a structure right here. And just to go over the structure, you can introduce yourself, you can tell them what you want to testify about, you tell your story, explain why you felt called to testify, and then name specifics about what you want done and the bill you want passed and what you would like for them to do about that bill, and then thanking members of the committee. And yes, I see we have a lot of people saying, tell a very effective personal story, because in reality, all of us are impacted by climate change in some way. It is a universal issue, and that's why we need to address it together. So the more we understand how these stories are really things that impact our lives on an everyday basis, the more we'll be able to tell them and advocate on the issues that we care about. And I just want to add one thing of what not to do, because the number one thing that I see people doing in their first testimonies or in their first lobby meetings too is trying to say everything. And if you try and say too much about every reason you might support a bill, every reason that you think this is good policy, you're probably not going to fit within the time frame that you need, and you're not going to highlight the most impactful parts of your testimony and your story. I like to think of our testimony as a group, because we are acting as a movement, and really we're trying with our collective testimony to paint a whole picture. And so each one of us is really like a brushstroke. We make up part of the whole, and we all have a unique part to play. So telling your story is how you can fit into the larger story that we are all telling together. So how do I craft my own story from my experiences? How do you craft your story from your experiences? That is part of what we are trying to help you with tonight. So storytelling has always been a big passion of mine. Before I was an organizer, I actually had a role as a storyteller at a synagogue that I worked at, Central Reform Congregation in St. Louis, Missouri. And storytelling is, I think, fundamental to the way we connect with one another and the way that we learn and share our values with one another. So learning how to tell our own story is partly how we learn to communicate what we've learned from our lives and from our experiences to other people who may not have had those experiences. And, you know, people who seem to have had a lot of different experiences from people I know, and I think people you know, are sometimes legislators and are making decisions that are important to all of us. So ultimately, learning how to craft your story is an important way for you to be able to make a difference in moving legislators from point A to point B by giving them a different perspective. So the more you can illustrate that with the specifics of the challenges that you are trying to solve and the things that you're passionate about, and tying that into the ways that you experienced those challenges in your everyday life. Those experiences bring up feelings in you because ultimately, like, being impacted by climate change and by the actions of the oil industry and gas industries are things that we shouldn't have to deal with. Ultimately, like, we don't want to be here organizing. We're doing it because our lives and livelihoods are threatened by these things. And so ultimately communicating why it's not okay that these things are happening is part of telling your story and the values of what you're advocating for and what you care about, like your values of what you think is important, whether it's caring for other people, caring for children. There are many values that we all share, and I think it can be hard to find what those are before trying to write down your story the first time, which is why we're going to give you the opportunity in a little bit to practice. But we want to share not just the challenge and why things are hard and what values we want people to stand up for, but we need to share a vision of what success looks like and how they can give the opportunity for us to have livable lives back to us. So we want to give them not only the stark reality of what's going on and how deeply we're impacted by this, but we want to give them the understanding that there are common sense solutions that we only haven't done because big corporations have gone about the most comprehensive misinformation campaign to try and stop this legislation in human history. So that's, I think, some guidelines on how I would think about telling your story. And ultimately, I think it's about how your story fits into our story, which is why I want to pass it back to Mustafa to talk about our collective impact.
Great, fantastic. Thanks so much, Sippy. So, so we have our work cut out for us, and we have set up goals as a Maryland team for how many pieces of testimony we would like to be getting in, and and how many volunteers we want to get involved in this work. So we set a goal of getting 20 volunteers to submit written and or oral testimony. We'd love to get 40 pieces of or more of written testimony submitted this legislative session, and get 30 pieces of oral testimony submitted over session as well. I think we've got 27 volunteers on here tonight. So if everybody were to write their own piece of testimony on just even one of the bills, we would hit our 20+ volunteer goal, and we would be getting so close to our testimony writing outcomes here.
Mustafa, I have to chime in. It's 39+. John submitted one today.
Well, we have 30 volunteers on the 27 people on the
Oh,
call.
pieces of written testimony submitted, the 40 plus pieces.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, great. Great, great, great. 39. Oh, got it. Got it. Got it. Well, thanks, John. That's amazing. Um, so we're gonna go into the testimony writing in just a moment, but raise your hand if you're thinking, I'd actually like to maybe submit testimony on 2 pieces of legislation this year, this legislative session, now through basically the end of March. We got 2 hands, we got Glenn, looks like we maybe got Mark. Awesome. All right, so we got some folks that are really thinking about this. Okay, great. Thanks, Lena. That's awesome. Okay, so we're going to go to our next slide here. Oh, okay. Well, we'll come back to that slide. But what I want to do is we're actually going to go out into breakout rooms and in just a moment. But what I would like to provide you all with is a link to a folder that can help you with your testimony writing. The folder includes talking points on all the pieces of legislation. It also includes, and somebody beat me to the punch. It also includes an example piece of testimony for the Renew Act. So you can see it's titled Renew Act Written Testimony. We also have a great resource here called the Testimony Writing Worksheet. So it just sort of breaks down the components of the testimony layout that Zippy shared with you all. And so you can use it as a worksheet if that's helpful. You just got to make a copy of the document or download it for yourself to use that. So we're going to break out into breakout groups in just a second here, and we'll come back at about 7:55. So folks will have about 8 minutes or so, 10 or 8 minutes in your breakout group. You can use it to just like brainstorm, write down notes to yourself about what you want to include in the testimony, just sort of outline it. And then take another 10 minutes to start really writing it out and drafting your thoughts, and use it as a space to raise questions and to collaborate with others on what they're thinking of writing about. So we just want to get you started on it, at least tonight. So we've got Baltimore and Montgomery County, and then the broader Maryland region. So feel free to choose what you feel is appropriate for you. Baltimore will be led by Zippy, Montgomery County will be led by Dustin, and Maryland will be led by me. And I'll stay in the room here to make sure everybody gets to their group. So Dustin and Zippy, you can feel free to go ahead to your breakouts.
What to click on to join a group?
Yeah, that is definitely the goal. John, let me get you to Zippy. I know that for sure.
No, what do we click on?
Yeah, how do we get there?
Oh, there should be a pop-up that is on your screen, but I'm also where you select the room, but also I'm happy to help you get there. So if you want to just tell me which room you'd like to go to, I'm happy to place you there.
Montgomery County.
Montgomery County, Sue, fantastic. Got you there.
Me too, Johanna Wormers.
Joanna, yes, I should have guessed that.
Terry Fitzgerald.
Ken
Terry
Lemberg
Fitzgerald,
from
Baltimore.
Montgomery County.
Ken, Montgomery County, got you.
Yeah.
All
Terry
right.
Fitzgerald, Baltimore.
Terry Fitzgerald, Baltimore, yes. Should have guessed that one too. All right.
Okay, there we go.
And then let me see. We've got Jim,
Montgomery County.
Montgomery County. Okay, Jim. There you go. Montgomery County, great. Let me see. Amy, you are muted.
I'm with you in Prince George's County.
Prince George's County. Okay, so I'm gonna put you into that breakout group, and I'll be there in just a second.
Okay.
Jeff, what about for you?
Baltimore.
Baltimore. Okay, fantastic.
Thanks.
And then Lena, Maryland group. Okay, great. And let me see. I see Bear. Bear, do you want to join a group? I'll put you in the Maryland group just in case.
Que sera, sera. How are you today? The future's not ours to see, even if you know Sarah Peters.
Rita, is that you, Mark?
Yeah,
I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. That's
Are we not having any Sierra Club Legislative Committee meetings this year?
that's a French song.
That's a shame.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. Just as a preview, I'm going to be happy to stay on a few extra minutes to answer any outstanding questions that folks have. And Dustin and Zippy, if either of you need to head out, you're welcome to do that. What I wanted to say just briefly was I had an amazing breakout group. I mean, I always have an amazing great breakout group, but I had a particularly amazing breakout group with Lena and with Amy and with Michael, who maybe dropped off, and with Mark. But Lena and Amy and Michael, I think, are first time going to be submitting testimony. And not only that, but Amy was like, how do I recruit more people to come to lobby night? I want to build a team. And Lena was like, okay, I want to host a pizza night to get other people that I know to be submitting testimony. So I just love the relational space that was being built there. I wanted to share that out. Any other quick highlights as we wrap up from your breakouts?
Miss Evelyn, can I call on you?
Sure. You want me to tell my quick story?
Yeah.
Okay. In 2019, in the summer, which was what I call the year of the monsoon rains, we had all around the DMV, we had torrential rains, but it impacted me particularly because we had a flash flood come down the side of our yard during those rains, and it was so strong, the water pressure, it lifted flagstone pavers from our steps down the side of the hill and floated them to the bottom of the yard. And the result of that is that every time there's a prediction of rain, I get scared it's going to happen again. So I do have this sort of existential dread every time they predict rain or it rains. So that's my story.
So, you know, there are stormwater protection bills that could have helped you if they'd been enforced.
Well, it's that's true. But that didn't help in 2019. So
Yeah, but putting the right parent habitat, living shorelines, the right plants next to your property in the right place. Plants that have deep root systems absorb water and release a
well, I understand stormwater management and the whole program in Montgomery County. I actually did some volunteer work with them, but the issue was the water was coming down a hill at such a force that there was a car parked on our street and it turned the car around 90 degrees.
Oh,
so
gosh.
that it was facing perpendicular to the road instead of parallel to the road. So having native plants with deep roots would not have stopped this particular flash flood.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, happy to have more of a deeper conversation about that later. But Evelyn, thank you so much for sharing your story. That is, let me wrap this up by just saying this is, again, testimony writing is really, as Zippy was talking about, it's about sharing your story and what are the relevant challenges or choices that you've made in your life that are connected to the legislation that you want to be talking about, that are motivating you to talk about the legislation. And so thanks, Evelyn, for sharing that, and for Dustin for prompting it. I'm happy to stay on a few more minutes to answer any questions. I know that we're a few minutes over, and so just really appreciate folks' enthusiasm for testimony writing and for getting involved in our legislative advocacy this session. So feel free to stick around if you would like to ask any questions.
Oh, I do have a question.
Evelyn, please.
If we submit testimony, we should let CCAN know, obviously, right? So how do we do that?
Yeah. So you could just email you can email Dustin. And I'll actually just put Dustin's email in the follow-up email for everybody that'll send out tomorrow.
You
And
just did.
Dustin will track that. But also, it's not terrible if you don't tell us that you're submitting the testimony. We have people, we have ways to find out who has submitted testimony. So
Okay,
that's not creepy. It's public record. It's
Yeah.
it's
Any testimony you submit is public record, and anyone can go on the legislative website and read it, as you can read the testimony from others
yeah.
okay.
and from previous years also.
Mustafa, would you advise us to say that we are active with CCAN in our testimony?
I would totally invite you to do that. I think it would be great, and it's also your choice. I think it's helpful for them to see that there's an organized group that's got folks taking action on a grassroots level. And I think Dustin, who actually has the experience being that he worked for Senator Mary Washington, I think they're more likely to maybe notice and to actually like read the testimony if they see it's from an organization. But Dustin?
Yeah, just a couple things. Please make sure also, because they do track these items, make sure that your testimony includes your address and what district you reside in. So even if you are not, if the members of the committee are not any of your legislators, please make sure that that you're including that, but especially if one of your legislators is on the committee, that one of our priority bills is being heard. They do track that information, so please make sure that you include it. And I think that's it. I had something else, but I'll send it to you in an email.
May I ask a question? I put it in chat, but you haven't responded. Is anyone familiar with the Future of Energy Initiative.org and a man named Dr. Alex Pavlak? I heard him talk just a few days ago, and he is very concerned about the undesirable effects of our shutting down fuel-based generators so
Yeah.
successfully. They were the national leader in shutting down fossil fuel plants, but the problem is that we now we're under great risk of having to suffer rolling blackouts or skyrocketing electricity costs, according to him.
Yeah. So I'm not familiar with Dr. Pavlak and the Future of Energy Initiative. What I would say, at least for in the case of Maryland, this is not we're not necessarily saying that any of the existing fossil fuel plants should be shut down. What the Senate President and Senator Feldman want to do is they want to build more gas infrastructure. So we're saying no more new gas, no more new gas. This problem is compounded by several factors. One is that that Maryland is a part of a conglomeration of a nonprofit organization that's only overseen by FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, called PJM. PJM includes Maryland in its geography. It's basically a body that decides what energy projects get added to the grid. So Marylanders don't actually have a say in this process with PJM. The state legislators don't have a say in what projects get added to this grid. It goes through this process through PJM where you have to apply for a permit. PJM is 5 years behind on approving permits for renewable energy projects to get connected to the grid. And because they're so far behind, and the reason for that is because they are run by former lobbyists and people who have affiliations with the fossil fuel industry. So the fossil fuel companies lobby PJM to keep their projects on the grid. So now what's happening is that we have coal plants that should have been retired a few years ago still connected to the grid. Its problem is further compounded now and exacerbated by data centers coming up on the horizon for the Maryland and Virginia areas. And so we're actually, particularly in Northern Virginia, it's a major, major fight where we're trying to advocate that there be requirements put in place for investments in utility scale solar and other renewable energy sources that come coupled with a company like Google or Amazon being approved to develop and launch a data center in the area, because their expectation, at least has been to this point, that they're going to get tax credits and they're just going to pass off the cost of the energy demand that they're creating to consumers. So we're talking about, somewhere between $10 and $20 being added to people's energy bills over the course of each month in Virginia alone because of the data centers. So now we have this nexus of this problem. But we, the experts on our side believe that if we invest in ACE, if we pass legislation like ACE and we invest in building out battery storage in Maryland, if we invest in utility scale solar, that we have the opportunity to meet the anticipated energy demands. But we don't have the luxury at this point of shutting off existing fossil fuel projects in the next few years, as well as we don't have that luxury for shutting down any nuclear sources to nuclear. We have to keep those in the mix in Maryland for sure.
One success story is using it passes the renewable energy was brought into an area, but they kept the fossil fuel down by about 80%, but enough so that they can use it as a backup if there's an emergency.
Yeah.
Well, you need backup for nighttime and when the wind doesn't blow. And we've already shut down evidently one huge coal plant. And so we already have this problem. Even if we don't shut any more down, according to Dr. Pavlak, we're already have a big problem with either are going to have much higher electricity costs or rolling blackouts. And higher costs could come from having to import energy from other states.
Then that's why ACE is actually, that legislation is aimed at in-state generation of energy, and it's aimed at having batteries that are in-state that so when the wind is blowing, when the sun is shining, that energy gets stored in batteries.
Yeah, well, Sam, I just have a quick comment. I checked out the website of that organization you mentioned.
Yes.
And it says on their website that this is a direct quote. Whether CO2 is a minor contribution to climate change or an existential threat is not yet clear to us and must be clarified. That is clearly false. And it seems to me this organization must be bankrolled by fossil fuel companies if they say something like that.
I agree.
I don't know that I've heard of it. I don't know if anybody else has heard of it, but yeah, that makes sense, Glenn. So thanks for looking at the website. But any other questions?
I'm kind of curious.
John, or Joanna? Yeah, sorry, John. I know you want to talk, but Joanna, you first.
Well, I'm wondering about Brian Feldman is the senator in my district, and he sounds like he's the person who's pushing for more gas plants. So I'm wondering what I could do in terms of testimony which particular thing would be the best one for me to do?
Well, I think for all of our, I would suggest for the testimony, I think you could write about ACE, the Abundant and Affordable Clean Energy Act. And because that is our proposal in response to how we meet the increased energy demands and try to keep costs as low as possible. In-state energy generation is a way to do that. And we can invest more in batteries, we can invest more in renewables. Yeah.
Okay.
And you can also talk to him directly, communicate with the office directly,
Yeah.
separate from the
Absolutely.
testimony, in addition to the testimony. As a
Yeah.
constituent, that has more impact.
Yeah, Joanna, this is public record. You can look at it online. I mean, he has said it publicly recently, so you are welcome to call his office and say, "Hey, I just heard about this and I just want you to know I'm a constituent and I don't support any new gas. I hope you really take a strong look at ACE and get it scheduled for a hearing in your committee and move that legislation forward."
Sounds
Um,
good.
yeah.
I'm going to lobby night too, so.
I think Joanna, just as it's our theory that there's been some horse trading, that he might not actually believe what he has said, but that the Senate and House leadership wants new gas. They've decided that. And so they're saying, well, maybe we'll give you one or two of the climate bills in exchange for passing legislation that's going to just provide incentives to oil and gas companies to build out any number of fossil fuel projects in the state. I also think I would suggest that, Trump yesterday pulled out of the Paris Climate Accords. He's effectively said, drill, baby, drill. I don't think it looks good for Democrats to align themselves with Trump on this one. So, but that's my take.
Well, he's also said that he doesn't want any more what he calls windmills. He doesn't want any more wind turbines to be built, and the permits will
Yeah.
not be available.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if we're not going to do wind, then we're going to really have to do a lot of solar and storage.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think Terry and John, do you still have a question too? I'm sorry that I didn't get back to you.
It's okay. I was just going to touch on Trump pulling out of the Paris Climate Agreement.
Yeah.
Is,
Agreement, yeah.
has CCAN gotten involved in any national campaigns? And do you think there would be something as they could be rallying around? I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, we will there's uh we will definitely follow up with our Maryland list about things that are coming up. I think the short of it, I would say, is that there are there's proposals that a proposal I just learned about today for building out forgetting the word, but building out like drilling in the Gulf of Mexico, and the emissions from that would be just astronomically enormous. So we're going to be, as we get more information about that, we will certainly be mobilizing folks to be taking action on it. There's just going to be so much in the way of fossil fuel infrastructure projects that they're going to try to move forward on the federal level, that it's going to be a lot of exhausting defense. It's just going to be one thing after another. So don't worry, John. We will share that out. Yeah, we will share that out.
by the way, that's the Gulf of America, not the Gulf of.
I know. Anyways. Terry.
So I have two questions. One, the no new gas struggle or the new gas struggle does not have a bill yet, correct?
Does not have a bill.
And
That does
you'll
not have a bill.
notify us when it does.
Yes, yes, yeah.
And my other
absolutely.
question was, I had trouble, technical problems getting linked in to this meeting at the very beginning. Is CCAN's position to support ACE as is, or with amendment removing the renewal of the nuke permits?
So currently we're supporting ACE as is, but
Okay.
well, I'm very happy to share that feedback with our Maryland director. Very happy to share that, or if you're welcome to put something in writing too, Terry, and yeah, but very happy to in any way that you would like to share feedback.
Right.
Very
So
happy to do that.
I'm with Chesapeake Physicians for Social Responsibility, and we'll be speaking against nuclear there. And there is some chatter about bringing up nuclear and so-called small nuclear reactors into the mix, although that's not in legislation right now. But from our position, letting them know there's opposition, letting the legislature know, and I
Yeah.
guess now the governor, that there's opposition to nuclear power is important, and this is part of that. So thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, do look at the governor's proposal, on the Energize Act.
Energize Act. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, thanks so much everybody for hanging out, and really looking forward to having some of you all write your testimony, and we'll continue moving our legislative advocacy forward. So thanks so much.
Thanks very much for your work.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.